offensive storylines, because Robin, full disclosure, Sip and I were not at the open practice. Robin was with led our coverage, led our team.
Excellent.
And, we've seen Dylan Raiola live. Your thought on Dylan Raiola and watching him in this situation.
I mean, he checks every box. And, I mean, he's got the size, the swag, the arm, the decision-making. Most of his incompletions were just drops by the receivers. I mean, he missed some throws. Let's not act like he was like flawless. In fact, there was one of my favorite parts was they had, the coaches were kind of mic'd up throughout, and Glenn Thomas was mic'd up, and they were talking about the quarterbacks, and Dylan had a bad pass that kind of sailed over his receivers. Oh, horrible pass by Dylan there, like over the mic for the entire stadium to hear. So right? they're making sure that his pedestal isn't too high. But I mean, there's really nothing not to like about just the picture that whole Dylan Raiola thing is. Like, I mean, he just carries himself like, he's already an all conference level player. And I think that reverberates, I think, around the entire offense, where that confidence and having a guy with that just aura around him resonates with everybody else, where that confidence from across the entire offense starts to elevate.
And he was, as you wrote, and it was an incredibly good rundown. And I mean, incredibly good.
Thank
you. You made it pretty clear. He came out with the one offense right away.
Yes.
So
he led the team onto the field out of the tunnel.
Say no more.
I mean, one of them, but like he was right there, front and center.
He was with the one offense. Now there was a lot that you covered. There's a lot of ground you covered in your rundown. I thought it was, for instance, it was interesting. Emmett Johnson started out as the number one running back, but Ramir,
they alternated.
Yeah. And Ramir was right in the thick of it too.
Yeah, and Gabe Irvin looked really good. Like Gabe got some reps with the ones too on that opening team compete drive, and he was running hard.
How about Mekhi Nelson?
Yeah, he was a guy that I had to look up the numbers. Like, who's that? That's Mekhi Nelson.
They brought him in June. He reclassified. He was going to be a 2025, and then decided to go back to being a 2024 and got to Nebraska after camp. So you talk about the postgraduate camp. It brought Jalyn Gramstad. They also brought in Mekhi Nelson as a camp workout player in June and added him to the team. But I want to ask you about Gramstad too, because that was a player at quarterback that received a lot of buzz. Known as the NAIA National Player of the Year, undersized, kind of has a Joe Gann swagger to him, wants to be a coach someday. But from all reports, Robin, I mean, he looked good, especially for his first time out as a Husker.
Yeah, kick and ball. I mean, he made some really nice throws, coupled like long touchdowns. I know he hit Malachi Coleman on one that just, you had to do a double take. Like, which QB was that? Was that Raiola? Was that Kalen? Oh, it's Gramstad. And, I'm sitting next to our intern Carter, who plays as close of attention to the team as anybody. We both agreed that, if Gramstad was on the roster last year, he probably would be pushing for a starting job, given Nebraska's quarterback situation a year ago. And so, I mean, who knows where he factors into the grand scheme of things as far as, making the depth chart, but just having a guy like that, who, I mean, he's gonna make people better. Like, even when you look down at the scout team and the younger receivers that might not get the first team reps, having a guy like that to just play with at such a high level, that's going to make everybody better.
Think about Gramstad, what he looks at when he lines up at the line of scrimmage at receiver compared to what he surely did it at Northwestern.
He was 25-1 as a college starter.
He's 25-1, but look at the receivers he has now.
Yeah, that's a good-looking group, by the way. Talk about eyeball
Jerry
test.
Rice.
Excuse me?
That receiver group.
Yeah.
Like, it's just from an eyeball test.
Yeah.
I mean, they got dudes.
Yeah. So they started Naor, Banks, and Bonner.
Yes.
Lloyd was held out. Jalen Lloyd.
Yeah, no Jalen Lloyd. He was held out. Bonner, hey, by the way, that guy, he's going to play. And he's going to play quite a bit. And he made some really nice catches. He looks really fluid out there at receiver. And just a big body, physical guy that, you look at what Satterfield has done with those types of players at his previous stops. That could be an interesting picture.
Injury, and you sat, I don't know if you ever ran that story, Sip, but the injury he suffered when he came to Nebraska was gruesome.
Well, I think he broke his leg in a car accident.
His femur.
Yeah, he broke his leg in a car accident.
So, I mean, they told him he can possibly never walk again.
Right. So it was a rough deal for him and his mom. And his mom was, very determined right away. No, my son is going to walk and he's going to play. Bonner is an interesting receiver to me because he has played fullback. He's a physical presence. I mean, if you see him, first of all, if you saw him, you would say he can't be a receiver. He's too big. He's big.
Oh, yeah.
He looks like a fullback. but he can run a little bit. And those other guys, Banks and Nayor, are just beautiful looking. I mean, they're how many times did I tell you guys, and it used to drive, I'm sure it drove you crazy. I just didn't like
The itty bitty committee.
Yeah, the itty bitty committee.
They don't have that.
Now it's the exact opposite. Now they're big. Now they come at you with Malachi.
And then you throw
Coleman.
Carter Nelson out there. You got Fedoni running down the seam. Like, those some
God
big
bless
targets.
Rule. God
Some
bless
big
Matt
targets.
Rule. Yeah, God bless him. He's smart. He's a smart man. He came in the Big Ten. That's what you need. That's the bodies you need in this league.
Yeah, you're not
It's
going
not the damn Sun Belt. It drove me nuts. Okay? It's not the Sun Belt, Sean.
No.
It's not the Sun Belt.
When Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, he's a grown man. He's
Yeah.
back.
He's up over 200 pounds now.
Yeah, what's he bench like 380?
Big boy.
Yeah, and then Malachi. Malachi's a great looking
6'5", 210. Malachi's almost a tight end now. I mean,
Malachi looks like he looks exactly like you want. He looks like a guy that's walking off the Texas plane.
I saw Malachi this summer and I almost didn't recognize him how much bigger he had
Big
looked.
he is, yeah.
Like he told me he grew an inch in height.
Guys, I think what we're looking at here is a potential to be a remarkable offensive turnaround. Now,
Yeah.
the offensive line thing concerns you right now. It does. But they were so bad last year. That was most of it injury related. You know, what were the total offense? Definitely in the hundreds. I think it could have been as low as 130. I'd have to go back and look at it, Chicken Nick.
They were shielded by Iowa.
What's that?
Nebraska's offensive numbers were kind of shielded by Iowa's, who were even worse.
Right. But I think the turnaround could be somewhat remarkable this year.
It was, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Historically, in the modern day of Nebraska football, you'd be hard pressed to find an offensive worse than Nebraska's production a year ago.
Yeah.
I don't tell me when.
God, I hope.
I mean, 04 Callahan
They've never turned it over
was,
that much.
was
so-
not that bad.
No.
04 Callahan at least had Corey Ross.
Yeah.
And they had Matt Harrion.
Yeah.
I mean, they had some weapons and they were serviceable enough.
Yeah.
Like they have not had like numbers like we saw ever.
Right. No, not that I can.
I mean, you can't really go back to like the Jennings era because that's not really a modern era. I mean, they're
Like-
playing 2 platoon football back then.
What was it? The Zach Lee 09
That's
offense?
pretty bad.
Like, they had running backs, but they could not.
Well, they had NFL receivers still.
Yeah, and they could barely get it to them.
Anyway, I think this offense
Good call on 09. That's a good.
Yeah, this offense will look much better. Much better. Again, though, we have to watch closely going forward this month, the offensive line.
Mhm.
You really do.